Alright, welcome back to a Synth Saturday on Master Guitar, where we learn how to master the guitar. So today let's talk about a different shootout. Last time I did the 2600 versus the Odyssey. So let's take a look at the Poly D. So one of the things, I want to say this right off the bat, when you're hearing all the classic synth players like Tony Banks, I think it was Tony Banks from Genesis, and then you've got Keith Emerson, or you've got Jimmy Waldo from New England. What they often had was they would have an Odyssey and a Minimoog. I remember when I was growing up, we called this a Minimoog because we didn't know no better. Sometimes what you're hearing when you're listening to those albums, as you just heard, is they begin to sound very similar. So what they would do is they would have one sound set up on the Odyssey, one sound set up on the Minimoog, because you wanted to get your sounds quickly. And remember, sometimes you go from one song into another, and if you've got a different sound patch and you're like, well, I want to use this one, so you'd set this one up to kind of sound like a Minimoog one way, and you'd have your Minimoog set up on the other one. Let's just say I wanted to have this one all in triangle wave, and then I need to have the lead tone and that's a lot of what people were buying the Minimoog for, was because they heard the Odyssey playing a lead and they were like, oh, I like that tone. And they get the Minimoog and never even noticed that wasn't what they were hearing. A million people have used the Odyssey, and a million people have also used the Minimoog. And of course the Poly D is basically a 4 oscillator version of a Minimoog. So I've got this on mono. So which one would you get? With the Poly D, you also can hit this into uniphase, or hit it into poly. And I can actually sit here and play chords. I'm going to set this even lower. So, what are the differences between them? Well, remember with the Poly D, I've got chorus built in. Right away, that's just an unbelievable tone. Again, remember, something I mentioned before, I tend not to change on the Poly D all that much. I don't ever touch my envelope section. So this is the envelope for the volume, this is the envelope for the filter. I've got two different choruses. I leave it usually on one. I don't turn the distortion on. I just tend to leave it like this. You've got each of your oscillators can be set. And that's just playing with the tuning of the thing. I mean, you can leave this right on 32nd foot and have just one huge, tremendous tone. Now to do that with the Odyssey, you can do that, but you have to actually go up here. Up here you've got the tuning for each oscillator. You've got a coarse and a fine tuning, you know, typical ARP style, basically like on the 2600. You've got a coarse and a fine tuning. Same thing with here, coarse and fine tuning. So that way you kind of get it closely in the ballpark here on the coarse tuning. And then for the fine tuning, you get it right on the note. And if you haven't seen my pedal board, you should have watched that video, by the way. You'll see I have a tuner the whole time. You kind of want to have a tuner because these are analog, and anytime the temperature changes on stage, your tuning can change. So I've talked about the setup on this before. You've got 2 oscillators on the Odyssey. You've got 4 oscillators on the Poly D, and I call this thing a Minimoog. I mean, Minimoog. It's not a Moog. It's a Behringer. So it's better than a Moog. But basically you got here your settings of the modulation section. And then over here on your oscillators, you've got the range, the footage, which I understand that because it's kind of like the setup on my Korg Delta. Then you've got the actual tuning. On this, the master tuning basically controls the first oscillator, and this is just making sure it's in sync with it, because I can take this and I can tune it. This one's a little high. There. All right, back in with the others. But whenever you do that, it's always probably best to just tune them all out and make sure they're all in tune. But I think most people are going to find their most usable setting is get into the 16 foot. If you want to get to the lead section, go right to the 8 foot on all 4. Okay, so I got this set up again. Sorry, it's going to end up being an extra file. Going to take a little extra editing. So the differences between them obviously is that the Odyssey has more effects. It's got the built-in distortion circuit. The Minimoog has the built-in distortion circuit. Again, the Poly D. I don't own a Moog. I could spend $4,000 to have less synthesizer, and that just doesn't make sense to me. I would be paying $3,000 just to say the word Moog, and I would just rather have this. I love Behringer stuff. I do. Hate comments are welcome. Free speech is here, as long as you're not being insulting. Now this is automatically diaphonic. You have two voices at the same time. You can play two notes at the same time. I have a patch cord in the back. I can instantly plug it in to make it monophonic and defeat that. This on the Moog is set up for big tone, big voices. And set up all for monophonic, but the Behringer also allows you to have the uni mode, which is usually, I'll leave it there sometimes, because now I can go right to polyphony. And yes, I know it's paraphonic, but you know, all it's doing is it's borrowing from the voices. So I've got 4 voices there, 2 voices, 3 voices, and 1 just dropped out. Now I have all 4 voices. It's that simple. It's really easy. You set your tuning here in your footage. This is your coarse tuning. You have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different voice waves. I can, you know, and this is actually, its square wave is set up so it's got a short ramp square wave, a longer ramp square wave, and then a much longer ramp square wave. But you know, if you leave it on the monophonic, you know, it's got it all set up for that. So, like the Odyssey, the Poly D comes with a sequencer. The Odyssey comes with a sequencer. This has a hold circuit, so I can hit the, you know, walk away and leave it, and I got an E. Cue up your big whatever, you know, that's very usable. I like that. And again, you just saw me demonstrate with the, this is kind of the VCA here. You just saw me demonstrate with the VCA. This is my VCA here, my volume mixer. These are my oscillators. My control section. Over here I got my envelope, and then over here you've got the Behringer Innovations, the distortion circuit. I never use that. You might use it. You can also get it by taking the, there's a patch on the out, you can take the output there and plug it into, you can take this output here, the headphone output, and plug that into one of the aux ins on the back and get the same effect. But they just add the distortion circuit so it's easier. I leave it set on, so if I need it, and I just hit the switch. But I don't use that. Now when you first turn it on, you'll have to leave it for 5 minutes because it's, you know, analog. And you want to let the oscillators warm up so they get in tune. Always remember you got to turn your chorus back on. If you're a purist and never would use the chorus, go ahead. I just find the chorus sounds too good and it's usable for me. So I can put on the Poly, get my chords. And that's about as much as I'll fiddle with the contour. And you can, it's basically set for milliseconds, so you can set it for how you want it Do you want it right away with a drop tone, or do you want it more of a wow tone? And that's as close as I can get to how usable for me the Odyssey is with the 3 sections in here. And if you didn't watch the other video, shame on you, you should have. I demonstrate how over in my VCF I have these 3 controls here. This is my keyboard CV slider. It'd help if I pointed it at it when I was filming it. Okay, this is my keyboard CV slider. This is the sample and hold slider, and this is my ADSR. So basically I'm taking my filter and I'm running it through my ADSR. So what you hear when I do that is this. It's almost like a tone control. Same thing here with the keyboard CV. And then with the sample and hold control. Which one would I get if I had to choose one? I like that amount of control I get out of the Odyssey. And literally it was coming down to, I watched a lot of videos, what was I going to get? Was I going to get the Odyssey or the Poly D? I'm glad I got both. I'm glad my wife talked me into getting both, because she knew I would not be happy unless I had both. And if you never saw the video of it, I cut out literally probably about 7 minutes where I sat there once I took the Poly D out of the box, because, you know, way back when, my original band, you know, with Joe, that band really had a lot of potential to be a super group. We just, you know, but anyway, I'll talk about that some other time. This was Joe's big thing with me. You gonna buy a Minimoog? Yeah, I'm gonna buy a Minimoog. I want a Minimoog. You want a? Yeah, you should get a Minimoog. I mean, it's gonna sound awesome. You get that? Yeah. How awesome is that? I mean, that's gonna sound awesome. So it was kind of an emotional moment for me, thinking back to the band and, you know, Joe. And there's nothing better than, you know, that early friendship thing. Had to get it tuned again. Remember, it's analog. As temperatures change, humidity changes, your patch settings will change. So basically just so if you just had the Minimoog and you just wanted to hear the Minimoog, that would be the Minimoog. But I love that. I absolutely love that. And then having the 4th oscillator there. How awesome is that? It sounds incredible. You have trade-offs. With the Minimoog, very easy to get your patch settings and everything. Just figure out which sound is the one you want. And then you got all these transpositions. And like I said in the other videos, I tend to like to leave my portamento on the Minimoog. It's called Glide. I like to leave my portamento up a little bit so it sounds like a synth, and I like to have a little bit of attack and a little bit in, you know, raising up the decay, so that way I've got a kind of a sweep sound. Hear how it just drops. So put this back on middle. You get that weir tone. Now if you want a lot of just, but I like to have a wah in the beginning of it, so it'll be somewhere around 200, and then up here is your cutoff frequency. with the cutoff frequency almost all the way off. And then emphasis, I can get that to the whistle. But I don't play with this too much. I basically leave it one basic sound. Put that. And that's the way I like to leave it. So it's up to you. What kind of sound do you want out of it? Let's see how quickly I can change the sound settings. Now when you're changing those, it's really easy to bump your tuning. So just keep that in mind. And understand you may have to plug in your headphones just so you can. That's the one. And actually, it was a viewer of the channel who left a comment and said something about when you're changing your octaves, you're hitting your tuning. And he says it's very easy to do, very hard not to do it. Just something to keep in mind. Tuning the Odyssey is nowhere near as difficult. I find with the Odyssey, understanding that these three, the keyboard CV, the ADSR control, and my sample and hold / LFO control, thinking of those like a almost a tone control. That's, for me, a lot of what the fun of the Odyssey is. So there you go. It's a short shootout. If you'd like to see another one, I can do a longer one, choosing between the Odyssey and the Poly D. And it's basically, do you like to fiddle with your tone more? If you like to fiddle with your tone more, it'd be the Odyssey. If you want the big tone and you're not going to fiddle with it too much, just change your footage settings and choose between, saw. You got a couple different saw waves, you got a triangle wave, and then you've got the 3 different square pulse waves, where it's the quick ramp, the middle, the slightly longer ramp, and then the even greater ramp. And I don't know what the names for those are. I probably should figure it out and learn, but that's just how I think of it. It's just because you can see the diagram on it. Regular square wave with a slight ramp, longer ramp, and even longer ramp. So study your control panel. It actually gives you information. And then to be able to switch this to poly mode and get those chords, that's awesome. And again, you don't have to have the you can set it to be just like a Minimoog if you want, and just have the 3 octaves. I meant oscillators, sorry. But I figure if you got it, use it. And just to have that. And suddenly I got an organ. It's awesome. All right, so there it is. I got to get this, get something to eat, cut this off for a while, go back and spend time with my cat because I'm taking time away from him. So comment, like, subscribe. Tell me if you would like a longer version of this shootout. I can do it and really go into detail on the differences between them. My recommendation is get both. Again, if you just like simple choosing of the waveform and not that much fiddling with it, then you would probably want the Poly D. If on the other hand you're one of those guys that likes to sit there and get your and kind of modulate your filter and play with your filter a little bit more, you'll want the Odyssey. All right, so there you go. Hopefully this answered some questions for you. Take care, comment, like, subscribe, and we will see you next time.